Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. I'm going to jump right into this one. This is one of those I could probably spend an hour on, and I don't want to be a good steward of your time. But today's lessons and reads were out of Psalms 1, Psalms 14 and 15, Psalms 36 and 37, and 39. I could not get over how much stuff is packed in these verses. This was one of those days where I was overwhelmed by what I read and how much I've read. And I've read all this before, but just the law enforcement perspective and trying to get takeaways for us was just unbelievable today. Psalm 1:1 has always been my favorite psalm. And so before I even got started, I saw today's read was Psalm 1, and I was like, ooh, man, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. But today I read Psalm 1:1. Psalms 1, and had just a fantastic read, great notes, had a great lesson lined out for us. Read 14, 15, they were really good, but I got to 36 and it was amazing. Finished it off, made notes, got to 37 and it was incredible. So I really hope that you will go back, even if you've read these before, even just go back, slowly read them, break it down, just take some notes as you're reading, see what comes out and see what speaks to you, see if there's anything in there that is personalized for you, and I think you too will be amazed and inspired by what you read today. Getting into Psalm 36, again, Psalm 1 is my favorite psalm, but I've got to pass it up to get to these others. 36, spend your time on this. Please, again, go back and reread it. 36 verse 9 says, and this is a quote from God's Word, "In your light we see light." And that took me back because I love the illustrations in the Bible about light shining in the darkness and exposing evil because that's something relatable to law enforcement. I spent probably 8-9 years on midnight shift, just hunting DWIs and answering calls. So the flashlight really sinks deep with me. It really brings things to light as far as understanding. So when it says, "In your light we see light," in God's light we see light. You can take that a step further and say, in God's truth we see truth, because that's what the light does. The light is truth. I hear a lot of people today, and I'd never heard this until a couple of years ago, but I heard somebody say, well, that's my truth. And then it started kind of building, and I've heard people say, well, what's your truth? Well, this is my truth. And I always find it funny, but reading today's verses really hit home. There's only one truth. You don't have your own separate truth, and I don't have my own separate truth. We may have our own separate perspectives of how we see truth, but there's only one truth. It's God's truth. I mean, He's the creator. Everything belongs to Him. Everything was made by Him. He is truth, and truth is His. They're one and the same. So when we can only recognize truth by knowing His truth. So we can only see light while we're in His light. If that makes a lot of sense. It should make a ton of sense. But anyway, before I run out of time, let's jump to Psalm 37. Again, this is such an incredible read, and 37 is pretty long. But I could have broken it down into 5 or 6 verses and just the notes I made. Let me say this before I forget. If you want a copy of my notes, I spent 3 hours just making notes on these verses today. That's not research or reading commentaries on them. That was just the notes I saw from sitting down and reading these verses. But if you want a copy of my notes, just shoot me an email, chuck@fcpo.org, and I'll be happy to send you the notes on these. But just go back and read on your own and see what you can find. Then compare what you find with the notes, see how it matches up, and just see what God shows you today. Incredible stuff. 37, especially verses 27 through 29, I think were just made for law enforcement officers. It talks about God's justice and his righteousness. And this thought came into my head of, man, we have such a head start on everybody when it comes to justice and righteousness because we're expected to be that in our jobs. We're supposed to practice that in every call we go to. We're looking for truth. We're looking for justice. We're looking for righteousness. And we try to present those things. Those are our characteristics when we're on duty. So since we practice that every day, those should just come natural to us. But sometimes they don't, and it makes me question why. But anyway, verse 23 is kind of goes back. God has ordained our steps. He has pre-planned our steps. So when we talk about walking in his way or walking in justice, those are the steps he has prepared for us. He knew you were going to be in law enforcement, and he's proud of you for being there, and he wants you to walk in justice and righteousness. Again, I've gone 6 minutes. I'm running out of time. Guys, be safe. Please go back and read these. Also, tomorrow's read is Psalm 40, 49, and 50, and also Psalm 73. Unbelievable, incredible reads. God bless you and keep you safe.